Okay, we are done. Next one is the extracellular matrix and cell wall. So I have a question for you guys. Now, where do we see or where do we found the extracellular matrix? Anyone? Okay. Uh, yes. Okay. It is right. No. She is right now. So, extracellular matrix is found in outside of the cell wall. So, cell wall, it has other components, other function or other organism or parts of the organism that can be also working to be able the cell is working. To be able the cell is work, no? So, extracellular matrix, most cells are also characterized by extracellular structures formed from the materials that the cells transport outward across the plasma membrane. For example, in extracellular matrix, no? So, example, in in a company, no? So, in a company, you are the sales clerk or saleswoman, no? So, the extracellular matrix there is the retainer person or what we call that, no? Mm. Something like, so we have a supermarket. So the extracellular matrix there is the sari store or the mini store out there in near our houses, no? So that is the example. As you're able to learn structures often give physical support to the cells making up a extracellular tissue. For many animal cells, these structures are called the extracellular matrix. So extracellular matrix is found usually in animal cells and consists primarily of collagen fibers and proto no wait sorry proteoglycans. For plant and fungal cells, the extracellular structure is the rigid cell wall, which consists mainly of cellulose microfibrils embedded in the mucus or other polysaccharides and small amounts of protein.
Hi everyone, this video is about the extracellular matrix. Let's start by talking about what it's like to be unicellular versus multicellular. If you consider a unicellular organism, one that's only made of one individual cell, maybe something that's in the domain bacteria or archaea, or possibly a protist, life is going to be pretty straightforward for that one cell. It only needs to look out for its own survival. It doesn't necessarily need to communicate with other cells. It just needs to worry about that one cell. But if you then think about multicellular organisms such as yourself, things get a little more complicated. If we have many cells all living together that are working for the greater good of the collective, then they're going to need some additional things. They're going to need some way to attach to each other to make sure the organism stays in one piece. And they're also going to need some way to communicate with each other to make sure that each cell is doing its proper job. So this starts very early on in the existence of a multicellular organism. Here's an image of an embryo of a very primitive fish-like creature, and each of these brown blobs is one cell. And you can see that already, very early on in its existence and its development, these cells are firmly attached to each other. And although you can't see it here, they're already communicating with each other constantly to make sure that each cell is doing its job. So animal cells in multicellular organisms are connected by a complex system that allows them to connect and communicate with each other, and this is the extracellular matrix. Want to let you know that in this instance, that prefix extra is there to mean outside. So this is something that is primarily outside of the cell. Let's take a look. Here's a diagram showing the extracellular matrix, and it's made up of a web of proteins and carbohydrates at the cell surface, and it's located outside of the plasma membrane. So in this diagram, you can see the plasma membrane here, that lipid bilayer, the individual phospholipids here, and you can see some of these blue proteins that extend through the membrane. You can also see some cytoskeletal fibers in here, such as the microfilaments that help support the membrane. Then if we go to the outside, this is all the extracellular matrix. So we have substances such as collagen, which is a protein, and right here we've got some little pieces of fibronectin, which is a glycoprotein, and then this feathery stuff is this proteoglycan complex, which is pretty complicated. It's got polysaccharides, proteins, and smaller carbohydrates as well. So there's a lot going on there. One of the cool things we can do in biology is use fluorescent stains to mark different parts of cells and then look at them under the microscope. In this image here, these sort of goldish blobs are the nuclei of individual cells. The red parts are the cytoskeletal fibers, and all of the blue stuff is extracellular matrix. So you can see it's this weird web-like structure of all these different molecules outside of the cell. Now, even though these molecules are outside, they are connected to the cytoskeletal fibers through those transmembrane proteins. So you can see here this proteoglycan fiber that's connected to the fibronectin on top of a protein, and that protein in turn is connected to the microfilaments inside the cell. So in a way, it connects the outside to the inside of the cell. And this enables animal cells to attach to each other, grab onto each other, and also to communicate with each other, send information back and forth. In addition to that, the extracellular matrix helps hold tissues together. For example, if you think about your muscle cells, they're constantly getting pulled and pulling on each other, but rather than just coming apart and all letting go, the extracellular matrix is what holds them together so they can keep doing their job. One other thing that the extracellular matrix does is it supports and protects the plasma membrane. So in multicellular animals, this matrix is doing all these different things for the cell. In plants, it's a little bit different. As you know, they have a cell wall, and that cell wall is going to perform some of these functions, such as support and protection. So that's everything you need to know about the extracellular matrix. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other.
So we are done watching the video presentation, no? Okay. So I hope you have an idea and enjoy the video explanation. So very creative, no? So bacterial cell walls consist not of cellulose but mainly peptidoglycans. So in the bacterial cell, so it has no consist of cellulose, but it is a peptidoglycans. So peptidoglycans contain no chains of repeating units of N-acetylglucosamine and N-acetylmoramic acid. So amino sugars that we encounter. So arterial cell walls vary considerably from species to species. Some are mainly proteinaceous, while others have peptidoglycan-like components. So plants are generally non-motile. And a lifestyle that is compatible with the rigidity that cell wall confer on an organism. So if we say non-motile is not easily moving or not easily changed, no? So unlike the animals, is a motile, no? So it is moving, have a movement no, an essential feature for an organism that needs not only to find food but also to stay becoming food for other organisms. So, next. Plant cells are actually have equal types, no. We have a primary cell wall and the secondary wall, cell wall I mean. So, the primary cell wall is found in the outer part, no, in the cell wall, and the secondary cell wall is found in uh, inner part of the cell wall. So the second cell wall is much thicker than the primary cell wall that may form by deposition of additional cell material and inner surface of primary wall. So the primary cell wall has consists of cellulose fibers embedded in a gel-like polysaccharide matrix. Secondary wall usually contains more cellulose than primary cell wall and may have a high content of alignment major component of wood. So the position of secondary wall renders the cell inextensible and therefore defines the final size and shape of the cell. So in other hand, they are very important, no, to have a final size and shape of the cell. So still they are important role, no, in the cell wall. So we have another one is that plasmogysmata are connected by numerous cytoplasmic ridges. So the singular form of the plasmogysmata is plasmogysma. It passes through the cell wall and the plasma membranes of adjacent cells are contained to each plasmogysma. So plasmogysmata is passed into through the cell wall and the plasma membranes, no. So it is more explained in the video I have to show to you, no. So it have created explanation in animated way, no, to be able you to know the text. So also let's watch, no, after this plasmogysmata video presentation, no, or we have another also so I have also a video presentation of a video in overall video presentation, no, to able you to know the plasmogysmata or the plasmogysma in the cellular form. So it passes through the cell wall, no, in the plasma membrane. So other plasmogysmata is continuing to the is continue to move or to do its function, no. So I have another video here presentation to summarize the or to elaborate more the video the topic.
In this video, we're going to go over the structure and function of plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata are microscopic tubular extensions of the plasma membrane that go through the cell wall and connect the cytoplasms of two cells next to each other in plants. Most cells in a plant are interconnected through the plasmodesmata. These connections form the symplast and the symplastic pathway, which is where materials are able to move between cells through the cytoplasm. The joined cell walls form the apoplast and the apoplastic pathway, which is where materials are able to move between cells through the cell wall. A single plasmodesma consists of a tubular gap in the cell wall of two adjacent cells. The two adjacent cells are separated around the plasmodesmata by their respective cell walls and a middle lamella. In the center of this tubular gap is a tubule of endoplasmic reticulum, joining the endoplasmic reticulum of the two adjacent cells, called the desmotubule. If we looked at a cross-section through this plasmodesma, then you can see that within the desmotubule is a central rod. The gap between the desmotubule and the plasma membrane is called the cytoplasmic sleeve or cytoplasmic annulus. The membrane of the desmotubule and plasma membrane are lined with globular proteins, which are connected by spoke-like extensions that create smaller channels along the plasmodesmata. The space within these smaller channels are called central cavities. The function of the plasmodesmata is in forming a pathway for small molecules and other substances such as plant hormones to move between the cytoplasm of cells. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button.
All living things are composed of cells. They are the building blocks of all life. Cells come in many different shapes and have different functions. Plant and animal cells are different too. The main difference between plant and animal cells is that plant cells have a cell wall on the outer layer, whereas animal cells only have a cell membrane. The cell wall is a protective layer outside the cell membrane that also provides support for the cell's structure. The cell wall gives the plant its actual shape. It acts as a gatekeeper because it determines what can come in and out of the cell in order to keep the cell protected. It is kind of like the outside bricks of a castle, only, as you will learn as you listen on, there are holes throughout this castle. Those holes do make the cell vulnerable, but they are important to the function of the cell. A redwood tree and a dandelion both have cell walls on the outside of all of their cells. The cell walls are there to give the plants their shape and support. However, the cell walls act and are constructed a little different to meet the needs of the particular plant. For instance, a 100-foot redwood tree needs a very strong and rigid plant cell wall so that it can grow to its great height and not fall over in the wind. On the other hand, a little yellow dandelion out in the field needs to have more plasticity so that it can bend, not break, as the wind blows through the field. Have you ever forgotten to water the flowers? They may not be able to talk, but they will let you know when they're thirsty as they begin to droop over. Their shape is still being maintained by the cell wall so that as soon as you water the plant, it can pick itself back up again. On the other hand, if you water too much, the cell wall also makes sure that the cell does not burst. It protects the cell from overexpansion. The cell wall protects the plant and cells from the many insects and pathogens that could harm the plant. But the cell wall still has its vulnerable areas. There are holes all over the cell wall called plasmodesmata. These are holes that allow for nutrients to enter the cell as well as waste to exit the cell. These small holes can cause the cell to lose water, and this is when the plant will start to droop. But as soon as the plant can get a drink, it will bounce right back up to its proper shape. Here is a list of the basic plant cell wall functions. Provide support and limited plasticity. Prevent loss of water. Protection from insects and pathogens. Filter. Prevent overexpansion caused by too much water. Keep the shape of the plant. Allow plants to grow to great heights. The plant cell wall is composed of cellulose. Cellulose is a structural carbohydrate and is considered a complex sugar because it is used in both protection and structure. The plant cell wall consists of 3 layers. Each layer has its own unique structure and function. The layers may vary depending on the type of plant and its needs. The top layer is the strangely named middle lamella. This outer layer is shared by neighboring cells, and it connects the cells together to form a strong structure. It is also very flexible. The middle lamella is rich in pectins, which help to strengthen the plant and give it the ability to resist compression. They also contain enzymes that help to break down the cell wall, allowing the plant to change its structure. This process is important when fruit is ripening. The primary wall is the next layer. It is composed of cellulose in the form of microfibrils. These cellulose microfibrils weave together with glycans, increasing the strength of the cellulose. Pectins can also be found in the primary cell wall. With all of this strength, you would think nothing could squish a dandelion. The third and final layer is the secondary wall. This layer is extremely rigid and provides compression strength. It helps stop the plant from getting squished. The secondary wall has a very similar composition as the primary wall, only it has more stuff in it. It contains lignin, which is very hard and has considerable strength. The secondary wall also protects the plant from invading bacteria or fungi. A plant cell wall is constructed around the outside of the cell to give plants a strong and protective outer layer. The cell wall can be divided into 3 layers, each of which is made for strength and protection. These layers and their compositions not only protect the cell, but allow for the cell to function. The 3 layers are the middle lamella, the primary wall, and the secondary wall. There are passageways for nutrients to enter and waste to leave. The plant cell wall is unique to plants and plays many vital roles to making plants what they are.
So we are done watching the video presentation. So I hope you have a learning, no? So any clarification, question regarding the topic? So if none, I have a activity for you guys. So we have A and B. So the first one is the enumeration. So 1 to 10. The letter B, identification. This one. So you only have a given time to answer this all of the activity, no? So number 1 to 3, list the 3 major structural elements of cytoskeletons. So if you are listening, you can answer these 3 major structural elements. So number 4, it is an internal framework that gives a cell its distinctive shape and high level of internal organization. So also, if you are listening though, you can answer that. So 5 to 6, list the 2 tubulins. 7, the largest structural element found in cytoskeleton. 8 is generally unmobile, a lifetime that is compatible with the rigidity that cell walls confer on an organism. 9. A mobile and essential feature of an organism that needs not only to find food but also to escape becoming food for other organisms. So, last but not least, it is the most stable and the least of soluble constituents of the cytoskeleton. So, that is simple question lang, no? So, which is, I have also show this images lately, so I know you can answer this. So Thank you for listening, and you have a good day.